All right, it is the week of July 19th, 2022, and from Locus magazine, I'm here to tell you about all the new science fiction, fantasy, and horror books that are coming out this week. I have 5 fantasy titles, 3 science fiction titles, and 8 horror titles, all hitting shelves from various book publishers. 8 horror titles in a week. Let's tackle the fantasy. From multi-award-winning Australian novelist Trent Jamieson, we saw The Stone Road in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a dark fantasy novel set in a post-oil dystopia. Geek Girl Authority describes the book like this. The setting is fascinatingly weird. It's maybe a post-apocalyptic version of our world, but maybe not. There are what sound like vampires living in the north and monsters that build statues in the woods. The plot goes like this. In a town near an otherworldly fire that lures people to the flames, monsters stalk the woods, and one girl is raised to be the town's magical protector. I'm going to lump this next title in with fantasy, although it might be more of a thriller. From Sarah Gailey, we saw Just Like Home out from Tor in hardcover, ebook, and audio. It's got a starred review from Publishers Weekly, who said, Vera Crowder, the protagonist of the superior novel of psychological suspense from Gailey, who also wrote The Echo Wife, returns to her childhood home, Crowder House, after 12 years to reunite with her dying mother, a fraught visit that reawakens dark memories. It gradually emerges that Vera's father, who frequently reassured her as a child that there were neither monsters nor murderers under her bed, and told her that the basement was off limits, was himself a murderer. See, the bodies were in the basement. No monsters at all, really. See, this is why I never liked basements. Nothing good happens in a basement, except maybe laundry. I think laundry is good. Next up, science fiction. From best-selling novelist and screenwriter Blake Crouch, we have the near-future science fiction thriller Upgrade, out from Ballantine in hardcover, ebook, and audio. So the setup. This is a world after DNA engineering caused the Great Starvation. Kirkus recommends it even for reluctant science fiction readers. Our protagonist Logan investigates and takes down people who are running dark gene labs and otherwise seeking to change the human genome. During a raid, Logan is exposed to a virus, and while the initial side effects seem to ease after a few days, he soon begins to notice unusual things. The fact that he can read incredibly complex books in just a few hours and retain all the information, the fact that he can beat his daughter in chess, which hasn't happened for years, the way he can remember every moment of his life in perfect detail. Sounds great. What's the catch? I already got my hold placed on a library copy. I love Dark Matter and Recursion by the same author, and a friend had to tell me a couple of times to give Crouch a chance, but I'm glad I did. From author Anya Au, we saw Ion Curtain, out from Solaris US in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a far future space opera novel with a pretty excellent pun for a title. A scavenger recovers the top secret AI from a Russian battleship. The UN wants it, and the Russians want it back. An even more powerful foe approaches from the dark of space. From Zach Topping, Zach with a C and no K and no H, it's a thing, we saw Wake of War, out from Tor Forge in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a near-future military SF/thriller. Bookpage says, in his fast-paced debut novel, Zach Topping, who has served 2 tours in Iraq, focuses on the impact that unrelenting pain and helplessness have on the human soul, and how the thirst for power can corrupt the best of intentions. From Finnish novelist Emmi Itäranta, whose Memory of Wonder made a big splash in 2014 and is known for her literary dystopias, we saw the Moonday Letters from Titan Books US in trade paperback and ebook. This is an epistolary eco-thriller. Lumi searches for their Earthborn wife's soul who has disappeared. Clues lead to underground environmental groups, affluent Mars colonies, the ruins of Earth, and Soul's own past. Publishers Weekly called it a quietly powerful meditation on the human need to share life and love with others. Now to all of those horror titles. From Silvia Moreno Garcia, we saw The Daughter of Dr Moreau, out from Del Rey in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a reimagining of H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr Moreau. Ian Mond, in his Locus review, calls it like this. Carlota Moreau, raised on a distant, luxuriant estate in the Yucatan Peninsula, has questions. Like all good reboots, Moreno Garcia takes the key ingredients, Moreau's study of the plasticity of living forms, his alcoholic assistant Montgomery, an isolated environment, and most importantly, the beast people, and reimagines them in a notably different manner, but in keeping with the source material. The inclination would be to update the story for the 21st century to reframe the Doctor as a fringe scientist illegally experimenting with animal and human DNA. Thankfully, Moreno Garcia goes in a different direction, one that aligns with her undertaking to infuse traditional genre tropes, whether it be vampires, the Gothic, or Regency romances, with Mexican culture and history. From Elizabeth Hand, we saw Hokula Road Out from Little Brown, the Mulholland Books imprint, in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a horror/mystery novel set on a fictional Hawaiian island. In an interview Publishers Weekly did with the author, Hand said, "My daughter lives in Maui, and I'm a cold, gray North person living in Maine. On one visit to my daughter, I saw an abandoned building in a big field painted over with many names and dates. They were the names of people who'd gone missing. Later, I came across a telephone pole covered with flyers in search of missing people. It was frightening on many levels, and as a writer, it opened so many doors." Finally, we'll speed up a little, like that poster you tried to make when you were a kid with a big marker, and then you realized you're running out of room just as the letters started getting smaller and smaller as you get towards the edge. It's like that. From Tortine in hardcover, ebook, and audio, we saw Heatwave by crowd favorite TJ Klune. This is a young adult queer superhero fantasy romance novel, third and final in the Extraordinaries series. From Thomas and Mercer and best-selling author Dean Koontz, we saw The Big Dark Sky in hardcover, ebook, and audio, a thriller/horror novel. Joanna receives strange pleas for help on the phone, TV, even in dreams. She goes back to Montana searching for answers, only to find she's not the only one. From Red Hook and author C.A. Fletcher, we saw Dead Water in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is an apocalyptic horror novel. Something in the water causes a strange disorder to affect a small North Atlantic island community, and contact with the world outside is lost. From Wordfire Press and editors Kevin J. Anderson and Allyson Longueira, we saw Gilded Glass in trade paperback, hardcover, and ebook. This is an anthology of 24 original short speculative stories on the theme of deception, with authors like Sherilyn Kenyon, Jonathan Maybury, Alan Dean Foster, and Christine Catherine Rush. From Razorbill in hardcover, ebook, and audio, we saw Youngblood by Sasha Lawrence, a young adult vampire fantasy novel about two queer teen vampires at an elite vampire school who uncover a conspiracy. From Titan Books and Tim Levin, we saw The Last Storm in trade paperback, ebook, and audio, a dystopian, futuristic fantasy about a man whose efforts to magically summon rain cause disaster. Also from Titan, we saw Black Mouth by Ronald Malfi in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a supernatural horror/mystery novel where a group of pals return to their hometown to confront a nightmare from their teens. Teen nightmare. From Tor Nightfire and author Nat Cassidy, we saw Mary, An Awakening of Terror in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a horror novel. Mary Mudgett, a quiet, middle-aged woman recently fired from her job as a bookseller, is haunted by visions of decaying older women and voices urging her to do terrible things. From Stelliform Press and Dennis Mombauer, we saw The House of Drought in trade paperback and ebook. As you could get from the title, this is a horror novella of climate change and colonial greed. In an abandoned colonial mansion in Sri Lanka, people who seek shelter end up having uncanny experiences. From Flame Tree Press and Shamiz Patel Papathanasu, we saw The Last Feather in trade paperback, hardcover, and ebook. This is a portal fantasy novel, the first in the Selene trilogy. Med student Cassia is kidnapped by a mysterious warrior and transported to a parallel world that needs help defeating monstrous creatures. Also from Flame Tree Press, we saw We Will Rise by Tim Wagoner in trade paperback, hardcover, and ebook. This is a horror novel in Echo Hill, Ohio, where the undead, ghosts, and bizarre apparitions have begun to attack and kill the residents. A group of survivors come together in hope of escape. Finally, from Snuggly Books and editor Brian Stableford, we saw Snuggly, Tales of Femme Fatales in trade paperback. This is an anthology of 17 stories about femme fatales, including dark fairy tales and fin du siècle decadence, many never before published in English, translated from the French by Brian Stableford. Snuggly. And in case you missed it, we want to mention Utopias of the Third Kind by Vandana Singh, out from PM Press. The title was out in trade paper in April and reviewed in the June issue of Locus. Gary K. Wolfe said this: Vandana Singh's Utopias of the Third Kind is the 28th volume in PM Press's useful Outspoken Authors series of chapbooks edited by Terry Bisson, and following the customary format includes a mix of fiction and nonfiction rounded out by Bisson's interview with the author and a brief bibliography. As with earlier volumes, it provides a vivid and multifaceted portrait of the author as both activist and artist, and Singh, a particle physicist working on interdisciplinary approaches to the climate crisis, as well as a professor who divides her time between Massachusetts and New Delhi, is a brilliant choice. So that's all the books we're going to tell you about coming out this week. This video is brought to you by the letter W, the number 3, and the square root of -1. But because letters and numbers don't always pay on time, we need you to do us a favor. If you go to one of those novelty mass hypnosis shows at the fair, be sure to slip the hypnotist a 20 to add like and subscribe to the list of hypnotic suggestions. You will like and subscribe. Also cluck like a chicken. We are at Locus Mag on most platforms, and we need your support. And if you'd like to know more about Locus Magazine, we cover SF, fantasy, horror, and YA books that are coming out. We do monthly book reviews, commentary columns by people like Doctor Moreau. We cover books written in English and books translated into English. We list all of the forthcoming titles from publishers, so you know months in advance what's about to come down the pipeline. We interview authors, talk to artists, we report on writers' workshops and conventions. And the magazine has been doing that sort of stuff since 1968. Our readers include librarians, booksellers, professional writers, and serious readers, people who like to know about what's going on in publishing and what's about to happen next. Go check us out at our website at www.locusmag.com. You can subscribe to the print magazine. Locus is available in a digital edition, or you can donate to what we do via our Patreon or direct donation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Come back and see us again soon, and we'll be here next week with more new books.